Hey, this is D Knight,
This is Ty.
and Carol is missing in action, presumably freeing the country. No, this country is not free. She's fleeing the country before the apocalypse breaks out. No, I'm kidding. But you're listening to the Part of the Insurrection podcast, where after Trump winning the election and Mike Tyson losing to a YouTuber, black people across the country have never been more down bad. We just can't have no victories. It's rough out there for your boys. It's rough out there for my people. You got to have our backs and support us in
It's
these.
been a crazy ass week.
It's been something. I've been trying to tell people, man. I mean, not that this is important because we do have some important things to get to, but like the universe, just or at least this country in particular, has just become a reality TV show. There's absolutely no way Mike Tyson should be at 58 years old, should be out here just boxing a YouTuber. But what's more absurd is the fact that if you watch Tyson train, you're like, oh, he's actually in really good shape. And then you watch the fight and you're like, oh, he could have killed him at any time and didn't. This is all for show.
Did you read the rules, the contract?
No, the contract was so crazy.
Somebody was going through and it was like, oh, okay, if he knocked him out in the first round, Tyson would be penalized financially. And then it was like it was just all this shit hamstring because basically they wanted to draw it out number one.
Once I saw the part about where he wouldn't get his bag if it ended in a KO in the first round. And I was like, oh, I'm out. I didn't even watch it in real time. I woke up the next day, checked out a few of the rounds, and I was like, oh, because I saw there was one point where Tyson stuck him with a jab really hard, knocked him off balance, and made him drop his left hand.
Then this jab right there that really knocked Jake back.
And when he didn't go in for the kill shot right there, because I mean, obviously the next course of moves is like you come with the heavy right, hit the body blow, and then you throw an uppercut, and it's all over. And when he didn't do that, I was like, oh, this is some bullshit. And I just, forget celebrity.
It's sad. It's really sad that, I mean, I don't know if he needed the money because I do know that he's had some financial issues in his after his career and everything, thanks to Don King. But I'm just like, my first thing in my mind was they want to remove black folks from everything. They're pumping up this. I'm dead ass serious. It sounds silly, but I was like, and now they're taking back boxing. You know what I mean? Like they're taking back boxing and they're propping up this Jake Paul. But then you got to have all these rules. And I don't know, man. Where's the dignity?
Well, Mike, that kid asked Mike Tyson about his legacy, and he was like, legacy means nothing. We're all going to die. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then when I saw the fight, he was like, yeah, he clearly chose the bag over his legacy.
He was like, what the fuck I care about a legacy?
And look, I ain't judging. Like, if I had the opportunity to make $20 million by standing around throwing punches at Jake Paul, but not really trying to end it, I would probably do it too.
I was Angry Bunny. She made a good point. And she was like, oh, great. So a convicted rapist and accused rapists are fighting. Cool. I was like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, look, I don't even know how to talk about Mike Tyson from a moral perspective. Like it's difficult to even comprehend the insanity that went into creating what the person Mike Tyson became over the course of his boxing career. A lot of detestable things. I know he was convicted on a rape count, but we're in the space of let's try to believe women if possible. This is one of the weird cases where I might make an exception in Mike Tyson's case, not because I think Mike Tyson is a good person, but mostly because he is actually willing to admit to you just how terrible of a person he was.
Of a person he is.
And he was like, I actually didn't do that one thing, but I was so bad in all these other ways that I deserved a prison sentence. Like, God,
when you are like, okay, that was just, okay, I didn't do that, but I did so much other dirt.
Yeah, just go ahead and lock me up.
That was just my karma. I deserved it for all the shit I didn't get caught for.
Yeah, that's crazy. It is.
Now we even. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to take a side on that, but it's funny that he's willing to admit just how bad he was, and he was like, even though I didn't do this, I deserve it. That's is some wild stuff. But
Yeah,
speaking of
well,
spectacle, so of course, Trump won the election. Womp womp. Sad for America. But Biden,
in the world.
of course, and Biden is, of course, taking the higher road where he invited Trump to meet him in the White House to talk about the transition that would need to take place.
Make sure you're accommodated, what you need. We're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
Good.
welcome.
Thank you
Welcome
very
back.
much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
So a couple things there. First of all, I don't know how to feel about Biden being the bigger man in this situation when Trump is threatening to basically have Joe Biden killed along with Kamala Harris and to do detestable things to his son. But he's clearly a better person than I am. That's why he made a better president than I would ever make. It's quite funny. So there's also this other clip of him running around with Trump at the White House where photographers are taking pictures. And if you notice in both of those, like for some reason, Biden seems extraordinarily happy for whatever reason, while Trump is like, I wonder what's going on there. Wonder why Biden is so happy, but Trump isn't. But
You know what? There were a lot of people were big mad. Many were disgusted at this, but this exact thing is why we chose him. Because at the end of the day, he will always be a diplomat. He will always be diplomatic in his process. He will always be gracious when it comes to that arena. And you just can't shake, 60 years of that's just who he is, not just as a politician, but as a man in general. And for him, it would do America no favors for him to be petty about it. It really wouldn't. And then then we would just have heard nonstop on the news about it. It was a no-win regardless. So he'll either get it from the left or get it from the right because he didn't. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, he can hold his head held high. And he took the wind out of the sails of Trump to be able to, how they spin shit.
Yes, I'm
and
aware.
What have you.
He took the possibility of them playing grievance politics with the transition out of the equation.
Yeah.
Even though if you're familiar with what happened in 2020 when Biden won and Trump was in office, the transition practically didn't take place because Emily Murphy from the GSA refused to certify the election results and began the transition for I think 3 weeks. It might have been longer, maybe a month after the election.
I think I wrote about her and what she did to just him up, just everything in that process. And then of course he never shared anything with Biden about the Afghanistan withdrawal or prepping him for that or anything there was no transition.
No, there was no transition. And in fact, when Biden took over the White House in January of 2021, the administration discovered that there was no pandemic response plan.
Yeah.
So if instead of telling the administration, telling the incoming Biden administration, hey, this is what the plan is, this is what we've done so far. They didn't tell them anything, only to discover that there was absolutely no plan to roll out the vaccines that were beginning to be produced. It basically cost people lives. People died because the Biden administration was behind on having a plan on how to roll out these vaccines. And because Trump, instead of spending, his time in office trying to mitigate a deadly pandemic, he was focused on trying to overthrow the government.
But the thing is, though, he couldn't do that because then that would have blew up the election was stolen. And because that would have been a concession to cooperate with the incoming Biden administration to share the information, and it would have pissed off his base. And he already knew he was going to take another bite at the apple, and he needed them angry. He needed them ginned up. He needed them on their side. He needed them. And so any concessions, any appearance of quote unquote weakness or whatever he would want to call it or something, it would have taken the wind out of the sails and his ability to torture us for the next 4 years with his bullshit.
Yeah, true story. But, in case people are wondering out there what the level of depravity Trump's appointees are willing to go to in the second administration, all you got to do is look at Emily Murphy here, who refused to certify the election results and begin the transition. I mean, they're just whatever ridiculous, absurd orders he gives, they're going to follow it because they did it before and they'll do it again. Especially now that, he's got presidential immunity. He's going to fire people. He's going to hire the most insane people to work in his administration.
And not only that, but he won't even sign that ethics pledge.
Yeah, already breaking the law. And I think a number of Senate Democrats pointed that out. But literally no one's doing anything, which is like, hey, man, you still have control of the Senate. Why don't you open some kind of investigation?
Go balls to the wall, like go full on dark brand and scorched earth on these motherfuckers, like right fucking now.
I wish they would.
To burn the shit down, not our shit, their shit.
No, again, Biden being the bigger person, yes, that's fair. But like, again, Senate Democrats, you still have some power. You can use it. But I think for me, one of the most frustrating things is watching Kamala Harris lose to Trump by like a point. And then every elected official just giving up and giving in to the incoming.
Yes.
It's
I totally get that. Because like when you look at the numbers and now, of course, the talking point or narrative is the mandate America. No, being like 1.5 million votes ahead, and they're still counting. There's still 1 million in California alone, Yeah.
Yeah, he's not even going to end up with a majority. He's right now at a plurality. And again, more votes being counted, he could end up still losing the popular vote to Kamala Harris.
I was thinking today, I was like, he didn't increase his base. He didn't get any more votes. And all of the fuckery that they did, all the shenanigans that they did with the voting, what it was about was chipping away at Kamala's votes, not about getting more votes for Trump.
For sure.
It was like the voter suppression, the suing to stop overseas ballots, 600 to 800,000 overseas ballots, and people finding out that they're about all of that suppression. It was about, and of course, Jill fucking Stein and the games they played with the Muslim community. It was all about chipping away at Kamala because they knew Trump didn't get no new people. He just had the same old races he always had.
I mean, I think
he got really no new folks. But
I think he's going to end up with maybe 1.5 million, 2 million more votes than he got in 2020, which is, I mean, I guess for any presidential candidate, that's what you want, even though he's the worst candidate and president we've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, the real difference here was Kamala Harris didn't hit Biden's number from 2020, and if she had, she would have won.
Somebody had pointed out that in 3 of the blue wall states that there were 120,000 votes. And this was them pointing out the Jill Stein effect, like herpes.
Yeah. Third
you know what?
candidates.
I'd rather call her a herpy than a cicada. She's a herpy. You know what? Fuck her. But that of the votes that she got, it was 120,000. And those 120,000 votes, had Kamala gotten those votes in the 3 blue wall states, she would have won the Electoral College vote. And that is why
I think in Michigan and Wisconsin, I don't know if Pennsylvania.
That is why
the case,
Republicans don't want to end the Electoral College, and why Democrats want to one person, one vote. Because I would have liked to see Kamala campaigning in Mississippi, in Alabama, in places where Blacks have been disenfranchised and giving them some hope. But they had the focus on Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
7 states.
7 states determining, the election. And then it's like,
And to be fair, this hurts places like California and Texas, where California is no other than Trump. This is one time being a fucking moron. Republicans don't really heavily campaign in Texas. Democrats have largely ceded that to Republicans because they want to focus on places like North Carolina and even Florida. It's
But
just
but like I said, and somebody did do a good. He did a TikTok. I don't remember his name, but he said, we got to stop putting this money. We need to invest in, like I said, the Mississippis and the Louisianas and the Alabamas who have a large Black electorate. And while on their local level, their vote may not count because of the gerrymandering in the national election, that doesn't matter. But getting them energized and letting them know that you care about them, getting them out to vote, because those votes that they put out for her could have swung some of those states. It could have flipped those states just by the sheer numbers of the melanin.
Mississippi theoretically could be a blue state if every Black person voted. And
every Black person voted,
and not every single white person in the state voted against Black people. It would be a blue state. It would be bluer than Georgia.
And you're a little bit younger than me, D, but I remember when David Duke was running in Louisiana, and Black folks came the fuck out. It was like 90% turnout. And I was
do remember
still,
this in the 70s.
what was that, like 90?
I was in the 80s. I think 88.
It was, no, I know that I was old enough then and getting, aware of politics and stuff. And I knew who David Duke was. And I knew that he would not be good to have in a statewide office, governor, whatever. But I remember being so proud of the people of Louisiana for coming out and making their voices heard. And it showed what could happen because he was thrashed bad.
91. Yeah, he got his ass kicked.
And that was the year I graduated the next year. Did I graduate in 91 or 92? It doesn't matter.
Damn, girl, stop giving away your age. But look, speaking of horrific Republican candidates for office or even Republican appointees for that matter, here's RFK Jr. on, well, you'll see what the future of our Health and Human Services Department is like.
You cannot trust medical advice from medical professionals. That doesn't mean that you don't have a great doctor that you should listen to, but you need to take control of your own health care.
Yeah, our future health and human services head saying don't trust the advice of medical professionals. We're all going to die.
But what I don't understand is, how does listening to your doctor not mean that you're not in control of your health care? Your doctor is giving you the information and then you make the decision. Do I want to take chemotherapy? Do I want to get a second opinion? Do I want to? So I have been all day, actually for months, I've been working mentally on this thing. I haven't really written in ages, but I'm always writing in my notes. And I'm like, you're going to do this, Ty. So I take notes. Lowest common denominator. And that has been something that I have been talking about. And I go, they dumb things down they bring it to the lowest common denominator where there's no nuance, and they try to box things into, it's like, and they use the buzzwords like, oh, you need to be in control of your medical, those words that people, yes, I need to be in control of my medical care.
Yeah. What does that even really mean?
Exactly. But it's so rampant among these fucking charlatans and Svengalis and, with what they do with the semantics, and semantics plays into that as well.
Well, it works too, because not only are people generally speaking uninformed and or stupid, and that's no offense to, I'm ignorant in a lot of areas myself. This also applies to me depending on what it is that we're talking about. But generally speaking, the larger the crowd of people, the dumber the idea has to be for it to proliferate. And Republicans are taking advantage of that, and just by dumbing everything down to the most simplistic terms, to the point where it's nearly unactionable, but people eat the stuff up again because just that is the way the masses work. Unfortunately, herd psychology it's a real thing, and again, look, lots of Americans are uninformed and or stupid. Again, so there was that study where people were polled on the policies that they support. It was like a blind poll where you didn't know the candidate, but you saw the policies and people voted on the policies. And then you line up the results with the actual candidates, and people supported the policies opposite of the candidate they voted for. It was insane.
You know what? I was thinking about, it was like, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago even. I was like, I really want to do away with the whole registering a party. Like, I don't even think that's fucking necessary. Vote for the candidate, vote for who the fuck you want to. Because if you take the D and the R away and you just look at the candidate, then candidates have to campaign on actual issues, where they stand. And I think it should be, debates should be mandatory, period. Like, I
don't know about, I don't think debates are always necessary, but I mean, I do agree in some ways that if party registration for the candidate wasn't a thing, like if you didn't know what party the candidate was a part of, yeah, it would definitely force people to be more informed about their opinions. But I mean, you need the parties for other purposes, fundraising for one.
Well, I think for voters.
Yeah.
Not for candidates, for voters.
Yeah,
like, why do you need to know what political affiliation I am? Like, that don't really fucking matter.
I mean, that's fair.
I don't think it does.
It helps the parties reach out to potential voters and volunteers and whatnot, but it also
just reach out to voters, man.
But not yeah, but you understanding where you need to spend your money is important for a campaign to not waste their resources. But it's also a double-edged sword, right? Because you can target the other party's voters, and it does make things a bit more complicated. But
it muddies the waters.
It definitely does.
It just, like, at this point, I think we really do need to evaluate, because I feel like it puts a target on voters' backs when they do that. And now, like, maybe before, but today, I think it's something to revisit and to think about.
Right. Well, we got larger problems again. So our future Attorney General of the United States has been nominated by Donald Trump, and no, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. But here's Mike Lawler commenting on that individual and the likelihood of him being confirmed.
Pretty sure I called him a clown and a charlatan.
And you stand by that?
Yeah.
Separate news. One quick question. Should a clown and a charlatan run the Justice Department?
Look, obviously, the president has every right to nominate who he chooses. There will be a confirmation process. We'll let that process play it out.
You see how that changed? He was like, Matt Gaetz is a fucking charlatan. If you didn't know, Matt Gaetz is the nominee for the Attorney General. And then when he was asked on whether he'll be confirmed, well, Donald Trump is right to
Well, like, John Cornyn, I never know how to pronounce his name because the spelling fucks me up.
I guess. I don't know.
He's got that extra N.
Yeah.
Cornyn. And so I want to pronounce phonetically.
Yeah. I just read it Cornyn because like that N does throw you off. Like, it's like lasagna where the N is silent.
Like the servingware?
I don't know. I know. But no, so Matt Gaetz has been nominated by Trump to run the Department of Justice. I mean, if you're aware of anything about Matt Gaetz, that's an absolute utter disaster after Republicans spent nearly a decade here talking about the weaponization of the Justice Department. Trump is nominating the most unqualified right-wing nut job possible for the job, which will no doubt
of weaponizing the Justice Department.
Yes, exactly. He'll do the very thing that they've been complaining about for years.
That's the gag.
That's the joke, right? Of course.
They did it. So though it was unfounded, so when they do it, they're like, well, now you're getting a taste of your own medicine, libtards, whatever. That was the whole game.
Yeah.
That was the entire game.
Again, and
I'm going to accuse them for 4 years of weaponizing the Justice Department. So when I weaponize it, they feel like it's just payback.
Right. And this is part of the reason you can't let these ridiculous narratives go unchecked because they will be weaponized against you. But also, Matt Gaetz is an ironic appointment, not just because he's such a terrible person and just like a right-wing warrior / nut job. It's also the fact that he's been under DOJ investigation for numerous things, including
since the Trump administration.
Yeah. Yeah, but for sexually trafficking an underage girl, that's not ideal. Also, the drug fueled parties, the drug fueled sex parties, reminiscent of P Diddy. Probably not the ideal candidate, and in that
Congressional
regard,
freak offs.
and there was a bunch of infighting in the Republican Party between Matt Gaetz and other slightly less absurdly conservative members of Congress that resulted in basically, you can call this retaliation from the right against Matt Gaetz, where they began an ethics investigation into that behavior that DOJ had him under investigation for. And well, that resulted in the conclusion of that investigation. But the House is now currently sitting on that ethics report, refusing to release it to the public, even though that was done before the election. They wouldn't do it then. And now that Trump has won the election, now it seems as though that they've decided to turn tail and not release that report because it would be extraordinarily damaging. And Trump's already nominated this guy to the position. But here we have Speaker Mike Johnson commenting on his thoughts about that.
I'm going to strongly request the Ethics Committee not to issue the report, because that is not the way we do things in the House, and I think that would be a terrible precedent.
So upon receiving the nomination for Trump via Twitter or whatever, Truth Social, Untruth Social, Matt Gaetz resigned from the House, and I guess that's giving Republicans some cover as to feel that they don't need to release that congressional ethics report. But again, if they do so, it wouldn't be the first time that a member of Congress has resigned before an ethics report comes out. So don't let them use that as a fucking excuse. They just don't want to embarrass Trump, and they don't want to seem as though they're enemies of the incoming Trump administration. Because again, we talk about this numerous times here. The first thing Hitler did when the Nazis came to power is he cleared out the Nazi party.
Yeah, exactly.
He went after his own people.
Okay, maybe they need to look into some fucking history, because Trump's, well, I'm not going to say his memory is like an elephant, but his vengeance is, in that his revenge, and he's got a kill list, not literally, but figuratively, career-wise. On those, I've got the disclaimer here, but
yeah, he's definitely an elephant in terms of remembering everyone who's wronged him.
Yeah, even those kissing his ass right now, he's enjoying it because he likes having his ass kissed. However, he has not forgiven you, folks.
And I'm sure he's got a list of enemies inside the party and out that he's going to take his vengeance on. And I would suggest, if you're a Republican somehow listening to this podcast, if you have dirt on Donald Trump, you might want to release that now before he can take vengeance upon you. So despite the fact that Matt Gaetz is a terrible potential nominee to run the Department of Justice and all these other insane people that Trump is bringing into his administration, you got to wonder, what is the likelihood of success in getting these people confirmed? Well, Mike Johnson has some thoughts on that as well.
What happened?
Listen, I believe in the principle of a new president being able to choose his team, and that used to not be a controversial notion. We're in a time of very divided government and a very partisan atmosphere in Washington. I wish it were not. I wish the Senate would simply do its job of advice and consent and allow the president to put the persons in his cabinet of his choosing. But if this thing bogs down, it would be a great detriment to the country, to the American people. Remember, they just delivered a mandate to the president, an overwhelming popular vote victory and of course, electoral college victory. And they have sent the message that America First policies should be the rule of the day. So the persons that the president is choosing will help with that agenda. They will take their leadership in these agencies and they will reform them as the people expect and demand. So we'll evaluate all that at the appropriate time and we'll make the appropriate decision. There may be a function for that, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
Okay.
There goes that mandate word again.
Yeah,
that seems to be the word du jour that they're all going to use, given the false impression that it was somehow an indictment on the Democrats that
no, it's
Trump
one of the
elected.
smallest popular vote margins in history. Like, I think,
except for Al Gore.
Yeah, it was like one of the two smallest. But yeah, that that function that Mike Johnson is talking about there that might be an opportunity to have Trump's cabinet nominees confirmed is called a recess appointment, and that is when Congress recesses for any amount of time. Generally speaking, in this regard, a period longer than 10 days. Trump can just have all of his nominees confirmed as acting heads of their individual departments for a period of 2 years or so, which means they would bypass the Senate confirmation process, hearings, and all that.
Well, that's the curious part, because they have a pretty significant majority in the incoming new session. So why would you want to recess? You got your Senate, unless you are concerned. Then why do you not want to do background checks? So this little pomp and circumstance and fluff shit that they do, and I swear to God, Mike Johnson is so smug. I want to, his face. I'm not going to say violent things, but he inspires.
He has a very punchable face. I know exactly what you're saying. But yeah, no, clearly there would be no need for recess appointments. Generally speaking, you would think if these nominees were worthy of doing the job, and the fact that Republicans will have a 4-seat majority in the Senate and probably a 5-6 seat majority in the House, although, votes are still being counted at this point. So that might be up for grabs. Few of those seats, but they should have a majority.
Devik Tran just he's up by like 36 votes or something like that over Michelle Steele, and they're still counting. So I'm hopefully,
even if you live in a blue state, every vote matters. Just keep that in mind for your congressional representation. But yeah, you would think even with a reasonable majority in both houses, they would be able to get these appointments confirmed. But that seems to suggest, at least by Mike Johnson's point of view, that they don't have the votes in the Senate, which means that Trump is looking for any various ways that he could find to skirt the Constitution to get the worst people into his administration, running it into the ground. Of course, they constantly play these games. It never stops. And again, with just more Trump insanity, what you have coming for you in a second Trump administration, it's not ideal. But here's Ron Goldman on Trump's proposal of him serving for not just 2 terms, but a 3rd term.
Isn't that already clear? Don't we already know that?
Yes, it is very clear, which is why it should be very easy for every single Republican member of Congress to vote in favor of this resolution. But Donald Trump, as you point out, Chris, has joked, quote unquote, about many different things, including, as I remember, in 2018, he joked about pardoning himself, and then that became completely normalized, and everyone just expected him to pardon himself if he won this time. The same thing has been happening. He has mentioned this over and over and over again for years now. And his jokes are not jokes. Nobody takes them as jokes. They are trial balloons. They are very intentionally designed to soften the response and then to normalize his unconstitutional and anti-democratic goals.
So Trump has been floating the idea of running for a 3rd term on the premise that because he did not serve 2 consecutive terms, that the 22nd Amendment, which states that no president shall hold office for more than 2 terms, only counts for consecutive terms. Now, again, obviously that's ridiculous and absurd on its face. But on the flip side of that, we have a and look, again, this is you got to take a lot of things for granted here that Trump will even be alive in 4 years. That's, I wouldn't necessarily bet my money on that. But we do have a Supreme Court who is at this point largely, or at least a majority of them, serve as a rubber stamp for Trump, and they can interpret the Constitution any way that they see fit. And they do, and they have, in a way that they could look at the 22nd Amendment and come to the conclusion that because it just says 2 terms, that it doesn't mean Trump served 2 terms and can no longer serve. They'll take his position, or could take his position, that it means 2 consecutive terms.
2 points. It's Dan Goldman, not Ron Goldman.
Did I say Ron Goldman? I don't know why I said that.
Twice.
Dan Goldman. You know what I mean, bro. My bad, dog. We still good.
He's not. Yes, Ron Goldman was the guy.
Hey, look, man, I'm stuck in the
OJ.
90s. I'm stuck in the 90s. All right.
And number two, if they did rule that.
Oh yeah, Obama
Trump in 2020. Yeah,
Obama putting on that jersey like LeBron in the meme.
Yeah, he's like coming out of retirement, yo.
And then he's doing all the dunks and yeah.
I mean, he's always playing. He seems like he wants to run against Obama anyway. So just give the boy what he wants.
Yeah, let him do it.
Give him what he wants.
But no, look, it's absurd that we're even having this discussion. Like there are probably more important things going on in the world as we speak. But this highlights one of the issues. It's just been a constant problem over the course of like a decade now. Trump says all this absurd shit under the guise of it being a joke, when actually he doesn't tell jokes. None of this is a joke.
He is planting seeds, just like he said every single election he's ever run in. If I don't win, it's rigged. If I don't, he plants seeds, then sees how things go, how they play out. 2020, he got smashed. So then he was able to run with it. Every other time, it ended up going his way. And then the claims just disappear.
Yeah. I mean, he claimed that the 2016 election was rigged before the votes were cast, but when he won, and he was like, well, actually, but then.
So what happened to all those rigged votes?
Well, then after
when
the
it comes
fact,
to MAGA,
well, he did say that
elaborate on anything.
He did say that the 2020 election was rigged because if it hadn't been, he would have won the popular vote too.
You just
oh my God, this guy.
Things just disappear, and then nobody ever brings it up again.
No,
nobody ever challenges him or brings it up again. And I hate to break it to MSNBC, CNN, all their journalists and anchors. You're being pogromed anyway. So go balls to the fucking wall and do something, say something to save democracy. Because you're getting no grace once he's sworn in.
No, they're not going to do that again. And unfortunately for them, they spent the past 2 years believing that if Trump happened to win the election in 2024, that it would be a boon for their ratings. But as they're finding out after the election, viewership for both CNN and MSNBC is in the dumpster. It is in the toilet. It is, just record lows
because
at this point.
Shit on their base of viewership. And we tried to tell them, come on, CNN, what are you doing? Come on, MSNBC, what are you doing? Come on, yo. Come on, yo. Come on, yo. But they still wanted to play footsie with fascism.
They did.
And now they laying off folks.
Yeah, I don't know whoever came up with the term "same washing," but it was an incredibly accurate depiction of what it is they do.
Absolutely.
I've been calling it soft selling for years now. Sane washing is a thing.
It is appropriate because we use whitewashing when it comes to history. So sane washing in today's time is completely accurate.
For sure. But what they've been doing is pitching Trump and all of his absurdity, even though they cover it as though it's like it's a reasonable alternative to what the other side of the aisle is offering, in an attempt to make it seem like, reasonable people have a choice between these two candidates, when the truth is reasonable people only have one choice, and anyone choosing the alternative in Trump is choosing utter insanity. And it's coming back to haunt them at this point, because people who typically
is this a comment about uncommitted?
Well, not only them, but look, and I'm not saying that just because you watch the news you're informed, and because you don't watch the news you're not informed. That's not what I'm saying. But people who tend to watch news outlets like media, or like CNN and MSNBC, are able to do at least the bare minimum set of critical thinking required to view that information and know when they're being peddled some bullshit. And the people who watch those networks have decided they're no longer going to continue to be peddled this bullshit.
Exactly. We're that cognizant on the left to be like, no, you're not going to gaslight us over here. You're not going to do this shit. But Fox viewers, OAN viewers of right-wing media, they don't have that same ability because literally everything they say can be fact-checked, debunked. And me personally, I would be offended, like, bitch, did you really just play in my face like that? Because right here, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? But I think also a lot that goes into that is they don't want to know.
Yeah, that's it.
I think a lot of it is, and it's willful because they don't want to be taken out of their echo chamber because then they're going to have to reconcile some shit within themselves, their own intellect, intelligence, their own willing to buy into. So they've put so much in at this point. They're like,
yeah, people's identity on the right is pot committed to the things that they identify with on the right. And so any sources of outside information, they will just refuse to accept, especially if it's coming from their white wing. I do that every time. If it comes from their right wing outlets.
Both terms are appropriate.
No, that's probably why I do it. Yeah.
Right wing.
No, yeah, they refuse they refuse to accept that information, but especially from their right wing outlets, because that is where they go to have their identities confirmed. And that's why you saw that shift after the 2020 election, where a lot of Fox News viewers were moving to OAN and Newsmax. Fox News decided, hey, we made a mistake in trying to mix some actual accurate information in with the propaganda. And then they went full steam.
They just went all in. They're like, fuck it. Murdoch's rich. We got another billion. Whatever.
Yeah, they didn't want to lose their viewers, so they doubled down. Now, again, Fox News lost $750 million for lying about the outcome of the 2020 election. No one seems to ever bring that up. And again, we covered those, some of the information in those depositions where Fox knows that they're just outright lying to their viewers and they think they're fucking morons. It's crazy.
And the craziest part is that even that wasn't a wake up call. So when Fox was trying to toe the line a little bit after making that, getting rid of Tucker Carlson, whatever, and after that settlement, their viewers were like, what's that Drake meme? No, I don't want to you know what I'm saying? Instead of going you motherfuckers got my dad killed. You got my uncle killed. My wife is dead because of your lies and we believed you, etc.
Yeah, help fuel the insurrection where, a lot of people they know or follow on social media ended up in prison because of it. And people just erased the fact that Fox is propaganda from their minds. They just continue to swallow it down because it reaffirms their already preconceived notions and long held beliefs. It's insane. We live in the most insane times. I mean, I know me and you, there's nothing we can necessarily do about that. We can only talk to the people who are actually open to real factual information or seemingly realistic opinions. We try and do our best to stay within the realm of reason over here. That's not a Fox News specialty, but we have a clip of Adam Schiff on Trump's comments about him being the enemy within and the possibility of using military action against Schiff and people like him in Congress.
And it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Do you think that he was talking about using the military against you? And how concerned are you about retribution?
Clearly, that's what he was talking about. Would he go to that length with the military, essentially fulfill some kind of a unconstitutional order? I would hope the military would have more independence than that. Historically, the military has stood up to civilian authority where civilian authority has suggested, as in his first administration, unconstitutional acts. Look, I'm not going to be intimidated by anything he says, by anything he does. If I was, I wouldn't be on your show. I'm going to do my responsibility in the Senate. Californians are expecting me, first and foremost, to try to work and get things done, work across the aisle, where the president wants.
Now, so I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, the military would never go along with some unconstitutional or illegal order from Trump. They would never engage in such behavior. And I've got I've got bad news for you. It doesn't require the entirety of the military apparatus to do something like, I don't know, arrest Adam Schiff or Democratic members of Congress.
Exactly.
It
And
only
we
takes.
already know that the military is infiltrated. I mean, there have been reports by the FBI with white supremacists, etc.
Neo-Nazis, all that good stuff. Yeah. Just, right-wing MAGA nut jobs. The military is filled with them. You don't need the entirety of the military apparatus to carry out some of Trump's illegal orders. You only need, a handful of officers and some willing grunts to do the job. And again, I'm sure the National Guard at this point is probably filled to the brim with right-wing Trump supporters who would love to have themselves federalized in service of Trump to carry out some of his horrific plans and agenda in 2025. So, anyone who's, and I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, doomer, gloomer type dude, but just you have to be prepared for the fact that Trump is going to order the people in his employ to do terrible things, and that there are enough people out there willing to engage in those actions.
To engage in that and carry that shit out. And my concern is, suicides are up, especially in the Navy. Sexual assaults are up in the military. And, the radicalization, they're always playing Fox only on the bases, which should have been stopped. But
yeah, that's the first thing Biden should have done when he got in the office is cut Fox News off of these government buildings.
Persons of color in the military, women in the military, they're going to be in incredible danger in a Trump presidency. They are going to be in incredible danger. Any LGBTQ person in the military, and this whole thing, when they go on about, our woke military, it's demoralizing. No, what's demoralizing is when you can keep saying that our military is shit, our military is this, our military is that. These are brothers and sisters in green, blue, white, in uniform. And there needs to be a trust, and there needs to be, and you've got a lot of people go into the military for economic reasons. They do want to serve their country, but you live in some podunk town in Alabama and you sign up for the military, and that gives you the opportunity to make a living, take care of your family, come back, get money, go to college, buy a home. But you ain't never seen a Black person not on cops. You know what I'm saying? So when you get there and then you are surrounded by this diverse, but you need to learn that you can't just go around calling somebody boy, that you can't go, because that's how they grew up. That's all they've known. You know what I mean? So you have these diversity, equity, inclusion. It's like, okay, we all need to rely on each other here because we are all here. I need to know that you have my back. You need to know that I have your back. There needs to be a trust.
Well, the trust is about to go down, buddy. One thing I really worry about, just given the state of affairs, our military is an all volunteer force. We don't have conscripts. So when you have a situation like this, where you've got an extraordinarily divisive figure that's about to become commander in chief, and racism running rampant, sexual assault, hate crimes, all of that stuff, you have the potential for a lot of minorities and people in the LGBT community and women as well who just quit the military.
They just leave. They don't re-enlist.
They
leave the force. And these are crucial people in so many areas of our forces. And then their idea of we're going to get out the woke, what they mean is we're going to
women, Black
discharge
people, brown people,
every person
people
of color and every female, every LGBTQ person.
Yeah.
Because we can't hide, if you're a white person, you don't talk about politics. Nobody knows where you lean, but according to them, my skin color tells them I'm woke.
Yeah.
Unless I'm just outwardly trumping Tim Scott and Byron Donaldson. But
I did see the first black person with the MAGA hat on in the wild the other day, so I was like, oh, it's tough out here. But no, so yeah, and Trump also has this plans to fire all of the generals who theoretically
that draft executive order. I was reading about that.
So any generals out here who don't sign the loyalty oath to Trump specifically, I imagine they're gone, as well as anyone else that he perceives to be part of the quote unquote woke agenda. So if the leadership is gone, there would be a bulwark to anything illegal that Trump wants to use the military for, along with, mass resignations or just people refusing to reenlist. Look, we'll have ceded our military to the fascists, and Trump will use them in whatever way he sees fit. And again, with their plans for mass deportations at the beginning of 2025, it spells disaster.
Just call it what it is: mass incarcerations. They're going to Jaeger. They're. That's it. It's not.
Okay, you're right. You know what? That's fair. We should just drop the term mass deportations because those aren't a thing. Largely because, again, to deport people, there needs to be a destination available for them to be deported to. And you cannot force countries to take your deportees. It's just, that's not a thing. I mean, maybe there'll be some countries willing to kind of butter up Trump by accepting that. But I'm assuming at this point, that's not likely or even feasible. And even if you wanted to round up millions of people to send them somewhere, you have to round them up and put them somewhere first because there's nowhere to send them.